All right, morally ambiguous characters, characters whose behavior discourages readers from identifying them as purely evil or purely good, are at the heart of many works of literature. Write an essay on how a character can be viewed as morally ambiguous. So this one would work really well for A Doll's House, because A Doll's House really explores as a theme morality. And the characters, in one way or another, are all trying to figure out their own definition of it. And the protagonist, or the heroine in this case, Nora, I can't decide if I want to spoil this for you or what, but it's sort of significant to understand the whole piece. She leaves her family, and she does that at the end. And that's why this book was called when she left, it was The Door Slammed Heard All Around the World. And the timing of when she did this, it was just before women's rights movement, and she, it was so controversial that she abandoned her children. There were even actresses at the time who refused to do the ending as intended. They wanted to change it. They wanted to make it into a happy story. If you do that, then it changes the meaning of the work. So, because it had to be that significant to raise that kind of question. And that's why it's on the AP test. It's something that it's not going to be black and white. Literature is always subjective, and that's the beauty of it, because you don't have to worry about being accurate. You have to worry about making an interpretation. Let's think about it this way. If a man left at the end of the play, do you think it would rock everybody's world? I mean, like, people would be just totally shocked, and male actors would say, no, I can't play that role, no. And that goes into feminism in a way, as a feminist theory. There's a lot of different theories. There's not just colloquial cultural feminism that people think it is. It actually derives, well, the one that I like to use, from Kristeva, a French feminist. It's very complicated, but what it really comes down to is the expectation of the mother is a lot, I would say, stricter, or just more defining as what they expect a mother to be, whereas a father, you could have all sorts of issues and still be a man, a father. But a mother, there's definitely a double standard. And this is how actually I would approach this with students, because if you're a teacher, also, you can also watch these videos. You may not want to bring this up, but it's 12th graders. The example I would use would be, what if some girl slept with a bunch of guys? What would you call her? And nobody wants to really just outright say it. Some people do, but usually they know. And if you ask the same about a guy, one of my students said, legend. So okay, so you have a whore, and you have a legend for doing the same act. You don't think that there's anything wrong with that? That there might be just a little bit unfair for the woman, that she's judged that way? Well, mothers are, I think we're harder on our mothers than we are our fathers, because of the same standards. It's part of the patriarch society that we live in, and even though we're evolving certainly from that, I think there's some underlining expectations that just are not going to quite ever go away. And some of it has to do with the fact that If you look at Lacan's theory of the mirror stage, I think the child's 2 or 3 years old. When he sees himself in the mirror, he realizes he's separate. And it's a nice, exciting discovery in one way. But in another way, the person's face that he's always looked at has been his mother. And according to Lacan, he didn't really see her as separate from him. So it's almost like looking at a reflection of yourself and saying that this person is who I think she should be. And when she's not, it's more, I don't want to say dramatic, you know? I mean, my kids were always treating me kind of like this way, like you're just not the usual mom. And I don't know what that means exactly. I mean, I get bored really easy with kids stuff. I don't know if it's not intellectual. I'm not really interested. Maybe that's the problem with me. It's not, you know, being the mother. The typical mother. I don't really know what that is, but there's definitely an idea out there in mind of what it should look like, and I probably fall a little short. And you know, anyways, so I'll get over it. Okay, so let's go back to this Q3. Ambiguous characters. Here's another thing to keep in mind. Nobody writes about normal people. What are you going to write about? What are you going to say? And just for a little bit of encouragement, especially to girls that are like this, who like to be perfectionists. Well, perfectionists are kind of boring, really. Nobody likes a perfectionist, to be honest with you. So I would rather be flawed and interesting and have people that either some of them like love me and some of them hate me. And I think that's a lot more interesting than trying to please everybody, and then you won't drive yourself crazy in the process. That's just a little free advice. But so characters are not really either just good or bad. They even characters that seem pretty bad, like, you know, even if like Macbeth kills somebody, we wouldn't say Macbeth is really a villain. I would say he's just a tragic hero. He acted on a tragic flaw, which is a completely different topic, and I'm not going to get into it with the Doll's House because it's not really relevant. But so Nora's character obviously is questionable. She's ambiguous in a way, and you know that because readers don't really know how to interpret her at first. You know, I'll give you an example, and we'll just kind of start. Okay, obviously I'm updating this video, so it may look a little different. But at any rate, Nora in the beginning is seen as this kind of frivolous woman. She has to hide these chocolate maroons that she's eating. She knows how to kind of play this game with her husband. She knows how the husband wants to see her, which is really all in his image. And one of the reasons why I'm updating these videos is because I actually want to show you how to write a claim statement that will help you make an argument for discussing the prompt. Other than just trying to write a thesis statement, a claim is going to argue something which is going to turn into analysis. But you also have to think about the overall meaning of the work. And the question is actually a pretty simple question, which is not always a good thing, because it's just asking you about ambiguous. Is it morally ambiguous? Is she, or the character, morally ambiguous? Which is an obvious question. Yes, Nora is. So I'll show you how to kind of tweak that a little bit to make it into an argument. But as frivolous as she seems, she's not at all a simple-minded woman. And you see that when she has an argument with Krogstad, she has committed a crime. She at this time, women could not take out loans. And she forged her father's signature. Her father was not in a good state and couldn't have done it. And it was to save her husband's life. But the calculated response from actually both men was, you broke the law. They don't think beyond, okay, but some laws need to be broken. Just look at, what we've seen with Jim Crow laws, things like that. Rosa Parks broke the law by refusing to sit in the back of the bus. But these things happen with people who, at the time, it's morally ambiguous. And then when enough truth comes out, usually it's a heroic move. But that takes a person who's willing to be a nonconformist, because the laws are not perfect. So upholding them perfectly doesn't make you morally better. But with their mindset, it does. That's all that matters. So when he tells her, basically what she did, she says, I don't believe it. Is a daughter not allowed to spare the dying father anxiety and care? Is a wife not allowed to save her husband's life? I don't know much about law, but I'm certain that there are laws permitting such as that. Have you no knowledge of these laws? And basically, if you're not, you're a poor lawyer. And it's a poor system. But you see that there's parts of Nora, which what I would call her essence. It's like something, if you're ever writing a screenplay, when you're developing a character or novel, you want to get to their essence, because their identity or the role they're supposed to play is typically just a role. And that's not who we are. We are not just playing a role. There's got to be something deeper inside of us. And so if you look at the work as a whole, she's living in a doll's house. She tells her husband, Torvald, later, that I don't even know what my own opinions are. I believed my father, and now I believe you. How can you ask me whether I'm being moral or not for wanting to leave you? I don't even know. I hadn't had a chance to get to know myself. And so I want to show you the different approaches you can take. Like when you take the test and you start to write a claim, which is the most important part, and I know you don't have a ton of time, so it's not likely that you're going to be able to revise everything. So don't worry about it. Worry about getting the claim right. Write 2 of them, just to see what would happen. So the questions I want you to ask yourself: number 1, am I making an argument? Number 2, am I setting myself up for analysis or plot summary? And then number 3, am I going to be able to show the whole meaning of the work just by using this one example? I have to show how it affects the work as a whole. That's really important. So your claim is the most important thing. Get that right, and then everything else will be smooth if you've read the book and you know it well. Nora's morally ambiguous character addresses the ambiguity of the system, proving how the system is morally wrong. So if I just tried to say that Nora was had a morally ambiguous character, the only thing I would be able to do to support that is to just go through the plot and show you that. And the prompt is not very good, because it does set you up for that. But that's not how they're going to score it. They're going to score it based on your argument. So I don't even really like that argument very much, even though it's an okay claim. But the second example, Nora is morally ambiguous by her willingness to break a law in order to save her husband's life, and then breaks away from her husband in order to save her own. So what I'm doing here now is I'm making an argument that she has to leave to save her own life. Now that's a very controversial idea, and I'm not really the kind of woman who would abandon my children. Maybe the husband, but not the children. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how I personally feel. It doesn't matter what I think. It doesn't matter if you're not a feminist. None of that matters. You're making an argument. So make the best argument you can possibly make no one's going to personally judge you for it. Just think outside the box and think, you know what, this is so controversial, I'm going to argue that it would be death for her to stay. That actually would be the moral thing for her to do. It doesn't matter if it's right or wrong, it just matters if you make a good argument. And now all your examples are going to lead up to her freeing herself from the dollhouse and being able to find out who she really is. And I'll say this one last thing about in context. You know, when Ibsen wrote this, there was a lot of women who thanked him who were associated with women's rights. And his response was, I was not thinking of women's rights. I was thinking of human rights. Okay, so it's things like that that I talk about in my courses that would really write your introduction. And it just click on the link below. I have The Great Gatsby, Their Eyes Are Watching God, and Catcher in the Rye. Very different books. But if you at least know 3 of them very well, then it won't matter what question you get. You'll be able to answer whatever question with those works in your background. All right? Okay, thanks for watching and good luck.